welcome back. So for today's video, I'm going to be sharing my crazy breakup story because it's pretty crazy. But before we get into it, make sure that you give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this kind of thing, and ring the bell so that you get notified every time I post a video. And subscribe if you're not already. Click this subscribe button down below. And let me know in the comments what else you'd like to see from me, because I do have a lot of new subscribers, and as always, I want to post the content that you guys want to watch. So make sure you comment below with what you'd like to see from me, and let's jump in. Okay, so let's get started here. I've got my Monster energy juice. This is Mango Loco. This is the only real energy drink that gives me energy. Red Bull doesn't really do anything. I have to have the stuff with vitamin B in it. And this has vitamin B12, B6, B3, and B2. And it's the B12 that's doing it. This has 500% of the B12, which I think means it's 500% of the daily suggested intake or something. So it's a lot, and it really helps. I don't drink a whole one of these in one day. I started this yesterday. I sip on it over the course of a few days. But yeah, I just figured I would show you guys in case y'all are wondering. And I don't like coffee, and I don't think it would give me energy anyways. I just don't like the taste of coffee, but just regular straight up caffeine just doesn't really do anything for me. So there you go, in case you guys were wondering what I like to drink for energy purposes, besides the fizz packets, if you already know about those. But anyway, let's jump in. I'm gonna start off by saying I do have a couple of videos from a couple years ago where I talk about red flags and signs of a toxic relationship. So if you watch those, maybe I'll link them below. But that's gonna give you more insight into what our relationship was like, because there were a lot of things that led up to me deciding to end it, and it was a very hard decision to make. It was something that was very hard to do, and it took a lot of planning and stuff, and of course we'll get into that later. But essentially I do have a video that talks about all the red flags, and basically I took most of those from my relationship, because there were just a lot of things that weren't good within my relationship. So I'll kind of just give you a little bit of background, but if you want a lot of details on what our relationship was like, so that you won't date the same kind of person that I dated, please check out those videos. I think I have 2 or 3 of them, just because I had a lot to say about it. But essentially, we dated from September of 2017 to October of 2019. So we dated for 25 months, roughly. And we were long distance for the first year. So I was in one state and he was in another. And so we were doing, texting, FaceTime, all of that. And then we were doing visits every couple months. So that's important to the story, because our relationship was we had our issues early on, but they were a lot easier to work through and resolve, and they were not they weren't as bad when we were long distance. So that's important to note. Also, I have a medical condition where my eyes water. Maybe I'll go into that more in another video. But if you see me dabbing my eyes ever in any of these videos, there's a 99.9% chance it's that and not me crying. So I just don't want any of y'all to think I'm crying, because honestly, I'm not crying. The actual part of this breakup story is just where I get into the actual breakup. It's so bad that it's funny. So I don't have anything to cry about for this video, but I just wanted to clarify that. So anyway, we were long distance, and because we were long distance, we didn't have a lot of noticeable issues. And that's important because our issues got so bad that it's gonna look like, girl, how did you not see this coming? That's kind of how. Plus, a lot of our issues like started out as like, for example, one of our issues was how controlling he was with me. It kind of started out as like, hey, let me hold you accountable. Like, I know that you want to have a better diet. I'll hold you accountable. You know, here's a Fitbit that I'm not using. You can track your calories, blah, 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 blah. And it felt like he was really going to help me and hold me accountable for my diet. And then it would just turn into him controlling my diet and telling me you're not allowed to buy that and all of that type of stuff. Stuff like that. Another one, he tried to tell me I needed to get liposuction to get rid of my double chin, purely to make him happy. And these issues didn't really surface hardcore until I moved there. So I moved there in November of 2019. No, sorry, 2018. I moved there in November of 2018 after we've been dating a year because I had it all figured out that, you know, we were serious and I was gonna marry him, and yeah, I was young and dumb. So essentially I moved down there. I don't know if I want to say exactly what state it was, just for privacy reasons. Maybe I will later. I don't know. But it was a southern state, and I moved down there, and things were good for a while. They really were. I think one thing that caused them to go downhill was the fact that we lived very close to each other, so we were seeing a lot of each other, which would be a good thing in a normal, healthy relationship, but in our case, it just amplified the issues we were having. So we both lived, it was a very college-y area. He went to college nearby, his dorm was nearby, and then I lived in essentially like a student apartment, but it was off campus, and they allowed non-students to live there too, because I wasn't a student. I was older than he was. I was past college age, so I lived there. Like, my roommates, I think, were in college. I was not, but it was very cheap housing, so it was literally like a 5-minute drive, if that, for him to come and visit me, and vice versa. And I remember he even walked a couple times. It was like a half-hour walk. So we saw a lot of each other, plus we had the same job. His dad was a chiropractor. Essentially, we both worked for his dad. We didn't usually work on the same day, but we had the same job. So when he was at college, I would work, and vice versa. I mean, it was essentially, well, not vice versa because I wasn't in college, but you know what I mean. We basically swapped. When he was in college, I was working, and when I wasn't working, and when he was working, I would be at home. I'd have time off, whatever. So although we had the same like job, we would do the same things, we didn't usually work together because it wasn't a job that needed to, it wasn't part of the job that needed two people to be there at once. But my point being is just that we saw a lot of each other. I went to the same church with him. I was obviously very connected with his family. We'd go out to eat weekly, so we were kind of a close-knit family unit, and that's what made it harder to really get away from this and to even decide to get away from this. So things started kind of getting bad like earlier in, I think, 2019, and I started questioning things because we were both having a hard time dealing with his mother. Plus the issues with him were just getting worse. So as I said before, he would be like super controlling. That was an issue that we had. He was just horribly insensitive. I have adrenal fatigue, and he was never very sensitive to my need for rest. I was not intellectually minded enough for him. I didn't want to like just do my own research in my free time and just read history articles and learn about stuff for fun. Like, that wasn't what I wanted to do in my free time, and that really bothered him that I didn't want to do that. It bothered him that my grades in school weren't top notch. You know, my mom should have pushed me harder. Stuff like that that was just not a healthy mindset to have. He would control how I dressed, or at least try to control. Like, he'd tell me, like, I remember him telling me these pants that I'm wearing right now didn't fit good enough because they're skinny jeans, but I'm skinny enough that they fit me loose and they don't look like real skinny jeans, so we need to find something else. I remember him telling me, I think it was an outfit with these pants, telling me that I looked like a homeless person. Stuff like that. He tried to tell me that I needed to change my hairstyle once a month because men need variety. And when I tried to tell him I never heard of that, he listed off, all these people in my life, my mom, my sister-in-law, whoever, that, well, they probably do that for their husbands. And I was like, no, they don't. And he would just act like, well, they're wrong because men need variety. So there you go. That's just some of the issues that we were having. He also had Asperger's, so a lot of the time it was very hard for me to tell what was his fault and like what was him being a jerk and what was Asperger's, because he did have a lot of, just as an example, if we were in the store in like Walmart, you know how you need to go to the end of the aisle to get something and there's a lot of people, you just pull your shopping cart over to the side, go get what you need, come back. He would just leave the cart in the middle of the aisle. And I'd be like, honey, you can't do that because people need to get around it. And he'd be, oh, it's fine. Chill out. He wasn't aware of how to act in social situations, and it was often very uncomfortable for me. All of that type of stuff. So that kind of gives you a look into the problems that we were having. So I was considering for a while that, we needed to end it. I was getting to where I couldn't handle the abuse. What I really came to fully realize later was emotional abuse, in the name of trying to make me a better person. So this happened like right before Halloween. I think this was over the course of 2 days, I think a Saturday and a Sunday. This was in October of 2019, and this was, I think, a Saturday and Sunday, and it was before Halloween because I remember the chiropractor office where we worked does a Halloween event, and I was removed from the people who were gonna help run the event. I was no longer chosen to help just because we were broken up and it was going to be a thing. So essentially what happened was, this was ultimately the nail in the coffin for me. This was an issue that we had regularly. I told you earlier, I mentioned that he wasn't sensitive to my need for rest. Like if I was sick, he'd try to tell me, oh, we need to just go out shopping and you'll feel better. And it was at the point in the illness where I needed to be in bed. Stuff like that. So he would want to come over like late at night and hang out, or he'd want to call me on the phone late at night and I'd be like, I'm going to bed. And then he'd say, okay, good night. And then like a half hour later, he'd just call me and be like, yeah, so I just wanted to talk about this. And not even be like, I'm sorry, I knew you said you were going to sleep. Stuff like that. So essentially, this was what was the problem. We had planned that the next night we were going to go to like the local county fair. He was going to take me there for like a date. So basically he called and was like wanting to come over to like study or something, and it was like 10 p.m. and I was ready to go to bed and I didn't want him to come over, and he got really upset and he like tried to make me feel bad and stuff. And that was another issue, was guilt tripping. He would leave it up to me, do whatever you want, and then if I would make the decision that was best for me, oh fine, well I guess I'll just be miserable without you. Like that's how he was. So essentially I tell him I don't want him to come over, and he's telling me, fine, you won't do something nice for me, I won't do something nice for you. We won't go to the fair tomorrow night like I said I would. Like, I won't take you to the fair tomorrow like I said we would. And I was like, okay, fine, sounds good. Because naturally at this point, I would rather not have him come over than, like, I don't want to go to the fair with this person. He was just appalled and horrified that I would rather, like, the audacity that I would rather miss out on going to the fair than be nice and let him come over that night. So he's just horrified. And I forget exactly what was said next, and it's probably a deliverance and an act of God that I don't remember it, because it made me upset and I started crying. And I calmly told him, "You're upsetting me." And then he goes, "Oh no, you did this to yourself. You're feeling the burn of when you won't do nice things for people." Mind you, I had dropped my whole life a year before in another state. I had a great life, I had a great housing situation, I had a good job, teaching piano at a music store. I had dropped all of that to move for him, and nothing I ever did was good enough. That was another issue, is he never appreciated anything I did for him. It was never good enough. So essentially, you're feeling the burn of when you won't do nice things for people. And I forget what else was said, but I knew in that moment, I can't do this anymore. So I guess, we hung up for the night. I went to bed. The next morning, I essentially texted my mom, and I was like, "I'm breaking up with him today. Like, I can't do this." And she had been wanting me to end it with him for a while, but I didn't really know that because she didn't want to push me. She didn't want to end up doing the wrong thing. She didn't want to end up building any resentment. So she hadn't really made a point of saying, "I wish you'd break up with him." I found out later how bad it was, and that she wasn't going to let me marry him if it looked like I was going to. So I essentially told her, I was like, "I can't do this anymore." And I don't remember what was said, but knowing her, she probably said that she would pray for me, and she may have gotten a couple of her close friends to pray. I don't really remember. So I had to take him somewhere, I think to the bank, because his car was in the shop, and he needed to deposit a paycheck from his job, our job. So I had to give him a ride, and this is where it gets good. Okay, so buckle up, because this is where it starts to get wild. Okay, so essentially, we're in the car and I'm driving, and he starts telling me essentially that, like, if you can't fix XYZ, whatever issue we were having, that, mind you, wasn't my fault, it was his. That was yet another issue we had, as he would blame me for his problems. He basically said, "If you can't fix whatever this issue is, we're gonna have to break up." And I thought, oh my goodness, yay, thank the Lord. He mentioned breaking up, so that's gonna make it easier for me to ease into it and break up with him right now. Otherwise, like, based on what happens next, I don't want you guys thinking, why would you break up with him while you're driving? I was not planning on breaking up with him while we were driving. I only did because he brought it up. So basically, I'm like, oh, you know what? And I said something to the equivalent of, I've been thinking, and I think that breaking up might not be such a bad idea. I eased into it as nicely as I could. So I'm essentially, I've been thinking, and I think breaking up might not be such a bad idea. Here I am thinking, it's going to be agreeable, it's going to go over well, it's going to be great, it's going to be amicable. Boy howdy, I could not have been more wrong in my entire life. And what happened next really confirmed for me that I was doing the right thing. So he bursts into tears. He's like, I think 19 at the time. And he bursts into tears, screaming and crying, literally like throwing a temper tantrum. And he's like, no, you can't leave me, don't leave me. And he's grabbing me like, here's this pillow. Like, I'm the pillow, and I'm like, this is me, and I'm him. And I'm driving. He's like, don't leave me, you can't leave me, while I'm freaking driving. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I couldn't even speak. And he had the audacity to try to tell me that he wasn't gonna let me break up with him. Like, he tried to tell me, like, I'm not gonna let you break up with me. And I was like, dude, what? So he's crying and screaming and throwing a fit. And then, get this, he calls his dad. And he's like, Megan's trying to break up with me. I don't know what to do. I wish I was exaggerating. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. So essentially what happens is, his dad's like, come over, we'll talk about it. So we deposit his paycheck, whatever. I take him to his dad's. Of course, his mom comes out. She's in her PJs because it's a Saturday morning. So yeah, that's right. This did happen on a Saturday, and then the other half of it happened on a Sunday. Essentially, she comes out. She's like, well, what's wrong? Do you want to come in and talk about it? And I was like, no. I need to just go. I'm going to go to Walmart. Like, whatever. And she's like, are you sure? You can come in and talk about it. She's being really pushy. So I'm like, no, I'm going to Walmart. So I go to Walmart, and I get myself a cherry Coke. If any of y'all know me on here or have watched any of my recent shorts, you know that cherry Coke is like drugs to me. Some people need a glass of wine or a beer. I need a cherry Coke. That's just comfort drink for me, the bubbles. Especially if I've got stress, headaches, the caffeine really helps. So I go to Walmart, I get a cherry Coke, like the little one out of the fridge section, like the 20 ounce by the checkout. And then I get those white sugar cookies that have the different colored icing depending on what holiday it's for. Those are like a real treat for me. I never buy them because they're kind of expensive. And then I also bought a new phone case because I just feel like I just need to treat myself. I need to change, swap out my phone case, all these things. And I just need time to think. So he talks it over with his dad. His dad brings him to Walmart to meet up with me later. And I guess it was probably like an hour and a half later. So I guess we kind of talked it out and we were amicable about it. I remember saying at one point, just to calm him down, I think this was right when we were in the thick of it, I said, I won't break up with you today, just to calm him down. And he goes, no, not ever. You won't break up with me ever. And it was this whole thing. I don't remember exactly when that happened, but I wanted to say that because it's just amazing to me that anyone could act like this. So essentially, we're leaving the Walmart, and there is, I don't remember the exact layout, but there are a couple of exits from the Walmart, and one lands you where you have to either make a right or a left on a busy main drag through town. And I was in the left lane because that was the direction we needed to go. It was a left turn lane only, and basically I ended up in a wreck. I essentially failed to yield right away to somebody, but the kicker is I could not see the person that I was supposed to yield to because it was two lanes, and I was waiting. This woman could see that I've been waiting for a while, so she stops and she's like, go. So I'm pulling out, turning left, and I'm being very cautious. My ex is helping me look, and then sure enough, I plow into a big black pickup truck that we both agreed was completely not visible when I started turning. So yes, I ended up being the one at fault, but I could not see the person that I ended up hitting. I'll never forget him. He was very angry. Got out of the car. There was barely any damage. There was just like a dent on the front bumper. So he grabs a crowbar thing and starts popping out the dent right in front of us before police even arrived. He was a real jerk. Anyway, that whole thing had me shaken up. So my ex is like, this is a chance for me to be there for you and help you. He was trying everything to fix things. He even, at one point while we were driving, we were talking through all the issues that were happening. And I was like, I just was rattling them off. And he'd go, okay. As if it was the first time he was hearing that we were having problems. Mind you, I was telling him about these issues every time. They'd been issues for weeks. For example, he would pick me up every Sunday for church. Church started at 10:30. It was a half hour away. We needed to leave at 10. He would routinely arrive to get me at like 10:15 or 10:20. So we were always late. So every Saturday night, I would say, you'll be here. We'd be on the phone. You'll be here as close till 10 as possible tomorrow, right? And he'd say, well, yeah. And then he'd be there 20 minutes late. And then he acted like he didn't even know being late for church was an issue. I thought it was just a pet peeve. So that was the kind of thing that we were dealing with. It was issues that we had hashed out repeatedly, and then now he's acting like he didn't know they were that bad of problems. And yes, he did, because I hashed it out with him repeatedly. So lest any of you think that I wasn't upfront with him about our issues, I was, right when they were happening. So essentially, all of that goes down. We end up going to Taco Bell for lunch, because again, that would be a thing. He'd be like, well, can we get food? Will that fix it? No, like an apology will fix it. So it's this whole thing, but Taco Bell did help a little that day because I was stressed. We ended up going home. I think I dropped him off at his place, and then I went home. And I think I told my mom everything about the wreck and trying to break up with him, and it didn't work and all of that type of thing. So essentially, I don't remember the exact timeline of everything that really happened after that, but we kind of, I guess, were on speaking terms that day. And I guess maybe it was late enough in the day that I just had dinner and went to bed. The next day was a Sunday. I didn't go to church. So I was writing him an email to break up, essentially. Which I know sounds crazy. And everyone that hears I break up over email, or that I broke up over email, they're like, why? If you don't hear the first half that he threw a temper tantrum, it looks really weird that I broke up over email, but he left me no choice because he was being a man-child about it. So basically, I wrote an email, and then I sent it to my mom. She is a licensed teacher, and is, one of her things is, she grades papers. So I knew she'd be able to read it for clarity. My stepdad also helped. He has a background in attorney and law, so he was able to help look it over. And I want to clarify, they did not edit my breakup email for me. They made suggestions, and it was like take it or leave it, and I could edit them in if I wanted to, just to help it flow better and to make sure that I was really getting my point across, especially since my ex was Asperger's and I really needed to be clear with him. And my mom has worked with a lot of different kids, and she was able to help me really make sure that I was getting my point across clearly. So then I'm on the phone with her editing the email, and this is essentially sometime in the afternoon, and this is another part where it gets good. So I hear a loud knock on the door, like banging on the door, like let me in, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Because the last time that happened, it was either security or police, because there was a problem. So I'm like, what's wrong? So essentially, I go to open the door, and in hindsight, I should have said, who is it? No, I just opened the door, and I was barely tall enough to really look into people. and see who was there. So I open the door and it's my ex.
Okay, so I'm just in the process of editing this, and I'm realizing that I left out a semi-important detail here, and that is, I don't know how he was able to get to my apartment since his car had been in the shop the day before. If you guys remember, I said that I had to give him a ride because his car was in the shop. I don't know if his dad took him to get it, or I don't think he was able to walk to my apartment because I was in a different apartment at the time, and it was he was also living somewhere else, and it would have been pretty far for him to walk. So I don't, in case you guys are wondering, I don't really remember exactly how he was able to get to my house, and I kind of forgot to say that. So there you go. Okay, back to the video.
And before I can invite him in or ask him to leave or whatever, he just barges in. And I'm like, dude. And he's got flowers, which that's another issue, is he wouldn't buy me flowers. I guess he just wasn't that kind of guy. And I'm like, you know, I don't want flowers all the time. But once in a while, I would like for you to buy me flowers. It's just a nice thing to do. And the only other flowers he ever bought me were when I prompted him, you should go get me flowers, and then he'd do it. So the fact that he brought me flowers, I'm like, oh boy. He also had his laptop, and I don't know for sure, but I suspect he had written me a love poem to try to win me back. Because that's another thing, he was into like writing and languages and writing stories, and I'm sure that he was some sort of love poem to try to win me back, I'm sure. So essentially, I ran into my bedroom, because this was a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom apartment, so I had my own bedroom and my own bathroom. So I ran into my bedroom. I don't remember specifically if I locked him out of my bedroom, but I locked him out of the bathroom. And I believe I was still on the phone with my mom at this point. And I told her what was going on. And I was basically, I was scared. I'm like, what do I do? And she essentially was like, you need to make him leave. You didn't invite him here. You need to make him leave. So she was kind of coaching me what to say to him. So I was just texting. I'm like, you need to leave. I didn't invite you here. I don't want you here. You need to leave. And he's like, I just wanted to talk. I'm like, you need to leave. Please leave. And eventually he left. And I texted him like, are you outside in your car? Because it would be like him to say he left to get me to come out, and then really he hadn't left. So I'm like, are you outside in your car? He said yes. And essentially, this whole time, his mom is calling me. And my mom is like, don't pick up. She's being nosy. You don't owe her anything. Don't pick up. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, do I decline her calls or do I just let it ring? She's like, just let it ring. Don't pick up. And then she's texting me and she's like, are you going to pick up or do I have to call your mother and find out what's going on? And mentally I'm going, yeah, my mom's not going to talk to you either. It was a whole thing. So eventually I forwarded him the breakup email and I just texted him and I said, check your school email. And then I left it at that. So I checked the flowers that he left for me. And they were kind of expensive. Now, to be fair, I know that there are way more expensive flowers than this, but based on the fact that he didn't enjoy buying me flowers, this was kind of a chunk. So they were like $20 flowers. And the ones he bought me before, I think, were like $10 or $12 flowers. I wouldn't have asked anybody to spend $20 on flowers. I would have been like, get the cheapest bouquet, whatever. It's the thought that counts. They were... For that price, they were pretty nice flowers. I have to say, though, they smelled really bad. I don't know if they smelled bad because I knew where they came from or if they actually smelled bad. But they smelled bad. Like, I hated to just throw them away, so I did keep them in my apartment for the next few weeks. And every time I'd come home from anywhere, I'd be like, dear God, what does that smell? And then I remember it's those flowers. I should have just thrown them away. I don't know. I hated to, okay? So then, flash forward to the next day. I show up at work and I've already got my mom and then my aunt, who biologically is my second cousin, but she's more of an aunt than anything. I I basically had them praying because I'm like, my ex's mother was essentially my boss. I mean, not really my boss because his dad owned the chiropractic office, but his mother ran the office and kind of ran the employees up there. It's just that his dad, you know, hate us. So I was essentially like, I need you guys to pray because she will be lecturing me today about this. If she doesn't, I'll be shocked. So work rolls around, she shows up. It's fine the whole day. I was dumb enough to think, yay, I got out of it. I got out of a lecture. Nope. End of the day rolls around and she's like, hey, can we talk? And I'm like, oh boy. And looking back, I should have said, yeah, sure, let me just go get Doc real quick. Because I know that would have shut her right up. Because she wouldn't have wanted to say any of what she said in front of Doc. I was just young and dumb, and I don't know. I shouldn't have sat there and listened to it. But essentially, she lectured me for like 20 minutes about how I broke up with her son, and there wasn't any warning, and how I didn't answer her phone calls, and that's not cool, and how she got a horrible night's sleep, because she didn't know how to help him, because she didn't know what was going on, because I wouldn't talk to her. And I'm like, dude, like, I should have just walked out and said, I'm sorry, but I don't owe you any of this information. But yeah, it was a whole thing. She just like lectured the crap out of me for all of it, and
Okay, hi, this is future me editing again. I just wanted to throw in one more thing that I forgot to mention here, and that is that his mother had the audacity to ask me if my parents had written the breakup email for me. She was like, did your parents write that email for you? Like, with that tone. And I was like, no. Like, I told her, I was like, they looked it over to make sure that, it flowed smoothly and had clarity or whatever it was I said. But I wrote that email. And she was just like, oh, well, okay. But the audacity she had to think that my mom and stepdad had written the breakup email for me. Like, seriously? Alright, back to the video.
that's essentially how this went down. Which, pro tip, if someone's mother is trying to lecture you for breaking up with them, walk away. You don't deserve that. If they're trying to tell you, why didn't you warn me that you were going to break up with them? Because that's not what you do. You don't call up your significant other's parents and say, hey, I'm going to break up with them today. Like, that's not how this works. She tried to just say that I didn't warn her, that I didn't warn any of them. My ex tried to tell me I didn't warn him about any of the issues we were having, and yes, I did. And he's acting, well, I thought those were just pet peeves. I said to him, it's not a pet peeve if it's a problem that I'm bringing up consistently. A pet peeve is something that's like annoying, but not to the point where I'm gonna need it dealt with. This was not a pet peeve. And I was talking to my sister-in-law about it, and she said, even if it is a pet peeve initially, it becomes not a pet peeve anymore. When it gets annoying enough that you're bringing it up all the time, it's no longer a pet peeve at that point. So yeah, I mean, that's essentially what happened. Like, she lectured the crap out of me, and she was just toxic to work for anyways. But it just got worse and worse and worse after I broke up with him, and it just got continuously worse until I moved away. So essentially, yeah, pro tip, you need to, if you're thinking about marrying someone, you need to spend a lot of time together with them. Like a lot, to really make sure that you can live with this person long term. Because no matter how much time you spend with someone, there's always going to be something that you don't find out about them until you get married. But at least if there's something about them that makes you unable to live with this person long term, you're gonna find it and figure it out before you get married if you spend enough time with them. So just make sure that you do your due diligence and spend a lot of time with the person that you're dating, and have a lot of conversations about real life issues and how you'd handle it. Because me and my ex didn't really do enough of that. So yeah, that's essentially what happened. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. And then my ex didn't really fully grasp that we were broken up. Even after that email, he still thought we were gonna work things out and try to fix things. And I later had to like rub it in and be like, no, like, we're done. Because he didn't get that the first time around. So the whole thing was pathetic and honestly kind of hilarious. But yeah, so that's essentially it. If you guys have any questions about what happened, feel free to comment below and I'll do my best to answer them. But yeah, that is it for this video. If you guys ever find yourself in a situation that sounds like mine, or an emotionally abusive situation, please know that you deserve better and you did not do anything. Even if maybe you do have some issues, it's not the other person's job to make you feel bad about yourself or make you feel less than. And there is a way out and you're not trapped, and you are strong enough to walk away. Just know that. I believe in you, and it's really hard. It's really, really hard, but it is so freeing once you walk away, and you can do it. So that is it, and I will see you guys in the next video. Let me know what else you guys want to see from me. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Stay subscribed to my channel if you're not already. And ring the bell so you get notified whenever I post. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.